Hello, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and welcome to the date range and cell protection booking system. We've got an amazing training here. We're going to show you this really unique cell-based calendar with automatic protection so you can delete these formulas and have them return automatically. I've got a lot to show you in this, including automated tab order, save booking forms in this amazing room booking system. So let's get started. All right, thanks so much for joining us today. I got a really unique training. We've got a cool calendar that we're going to show you. In fact, I saw some airline websites where you can automatically enter a start date and end date, and I really like the concept of highlighting the days within the range. So I wanted to create that automatically so that whatever days are in the range are automatically highlighted when the calendar comes up. And in this instance, I wanted to try a cell-based calendar as opposed to a pop-up calendar. Pop-up calendars work great, and I use them all the time, but I wanted to show you something different. There's a few advantages. We got a really nice highlighting the range feature, and this works particularly well when you want to highlight a range between two dates. So if we select a specific date, it's automatically going to be highlighted on the calendar. And we can also, of course, change the month. If we want a longer duration, we can change it to November 1st. And you're going to see that the entire month is now filled out. So I'm going to show you how to create this calendar. I'm going to show you how to switch months automatically. We're going to show you how to click on the current day of the day. So there's a lot of features. We're going to show you how we did all that. Of course, we're going to add in automated tab stop, which we have covered before. So we're going to automate the tabs. And we're also going to show you how to create these new bookings. So that's a big promise. We've got a whole lot to cover in this very unique training. So we're going to get right to it. So let's start out with just the basics of this, and we have a really basic form. I'm not going to go too much into detail on how we create these new ones, but it's very, very simple. I will cover it, but we're going to cover it quickly because often in these trainings we do the same thing over and over again, but there's something unique about these. When we create these forms, we do the same thing almost each and every time, but there's unique features that are not covered in every other. So we want to focus on the unique features. And in this training, the unique features that we're going to focus on are this calendar that's really cool. And also the ability, look in this, if I protect this sheet and click OK, and now it's protected, you see I am unable to click on, let's say, the room. This cell D6 is protected. I can't click on it, right? But what I want to do is I want to be able to protect certain cells. For example, total nights. This is a simple formula, and I can't click on it. I can't see the formula. And all this formula is simply the checkout date minus the check-in. So, but I don't want users to be able to delete it. I don't want them to be able to click on it, which is nice. I only want to be able to click. But look at this calendar. This calendar is cell-based. We need the user to be able to click on a specific date to select it, right? So how do we get them? But yet, of course, there's a formula. There's formulas in here. So how do we get them to select? Like if we select the highlighted, right? You can see there's all formulas based in. But what if they delete it? What if they cut that out and they delete it? How do we get that from coming back? Look, it came back. How do we do that? Right? So this is a really specific training that's going to really help you on protection. I'm going to show you multiple ways to protect a cell. In this instance, we want the user to select some cells, but not other cells. But yet we have some cells like this one. If we click the calendar, we want them to be able to select on a specific date or a specific cell. Now this cell contains a date, right? It contains a formula that's made up of those dates. So how do we protect that? We want to give them the ability to select them but not delete them. So if we cut this and we delete it, we need that information to come back. So I'm going to show you exactly how we did that so that you can protect all of your formulas so that users cannot delete them. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. And there are many, many ways that you can apply this type of methodology protection when you want to protect some cells and other cells not. So it's a really great training. And so I want to show you how we do that. But let's go into the basics and show you everything that this made up. This is just a one-sheet application, and for our purposes, we're using a little booking system so that we can enter a room number, and we can enter a room type, and we can enter some special requirement test requirements. And then we can just save the booking. So it's very, very simple, and it's going to save it down here. When we select it, it's going to show that booking above. those are, if you've been following my videos, that's a pretty basic type of feature that we've done before. In Form, we've covered that a lot. I'll cover it very quickly, but I want to basically get into two elements of this training that are really important. One is this pop-up calendar that allows us to select the date, and when we select, for example, it's not going to show up because the check-in date is before, is after, but as soon as we check in date before, it's going to highlight those cells. I want to show you how we did that, how we created this calendar, the formula. So we've got a lot to cover, especially when it comes to focusing on this calendar. And pop-up calendars work great, but I wanted to show you something different. I always want to, you may find an instance where to apply this. I've used shape-based calendars, I've used pop-up form-based calendars, and now we have a cell-based calendar. So, there's not necessarily one best calendar. It really depends on what your purpose is, right? So this particular cell-based calendar would not be good for all instances. It takes up a lot of room in cells. You may not have that room, but it shows you the ability to highlight specific cells, and it's really nice for that purpose. So every calendar, every date picker, sometimes you would call them date pickers, have their own purposes. So it's my job to show you all of the ways, and you determine the best way for your application that you build, or for your customers, or for the end users. So we're going to go over that today. All right, so let's get to it. As with all my trainings, we've covered the first two columns. This is for admin, and you'll see now this is protected. I'm going to unprotect it, but basically the idea is we want VBA to control certain things and hide them from the users. These columns, of course, will be hidden. So we'll unprotect it. And we have the selected row. That's going to always keep whatever row the user has selected. That's going to change there. We use conditional formatting, home conditional formatting, been over it many times. And then we highlight the row. We change the color and change the font based on the row. And I also want to make sure that there's a value in column D. So we've been over that many times. We also have conditional formatting for alternate rows here, blue and white. That gives us the table, but it only based on the data. So as soon as we add data here, you'll see that the colors change, the alternate colors change, and along with the borders, we've got a border here. So that's based all on the value in D. So as soon as we put that in, we can see that. And then selection. So that covers that. Now, this new booking, we need to keep track. If I have a new booking, I want to track that separately. This has to go to true. I want to know which bookings are new and which bookings are existing. A new one, of course, would be saved below. An existing one would be saved based on the row of that booking, based on this row, 17. So if we change this in row 17, if we change this to Davis, and then we click update, save the booking, it's going to change it here, so that when we select something else, it's going to be able to load it. So we got to know that row 17 is the one we're going to be editing. This is based on cell mapping. You've seen that before. We'll go over it quickly. So I also want to know when the booking is loading. When is it loading? It's loading when we click something else. So you're going to see quickly in B3 that as we loaded it changed to true to false, and there's some reason we need to load it, because we don't want anything to happen other than loading the form. For example, if I make a change to here, I want that kind of change. I want this calendar to pop up. And also, we're going to use conditional formatting. So we're going to go over that on the calendar. So we want to know when the booking loaded. And then the month, I want to keep track of the in month. In month will be check-in month. I guess I could put a little bit more details. CHK check-in, just so you know, check-in month is October. So as we change this month, of course, that number is going to go. So it's always going to keep track. And that formula is simply a match formula. Now I have the CI months. That's the check-in month. That's based on this month here. That is in, of course, J4. So if we look here, we'll see J6. That is the month. So we need to know what is that. So the check-in month is the months. What is this months? Well, that is this named range right here. If we look here and we highlight all of those, we'll see that that is the months. So that's the name range. So all we're going to be doing for the check-in month is determining what row, what month it is, and we can use this formula. So in this case, September is the 9th month, and it's going to find it right here. So when we click on that, we know if we change that back to October, this is going to change to 10. So we're going to use math. We're doing the same thing for the checkout month, except this one we're doing CO month. Now I've named these named ranges. So if we look at October, we'll see that's the CI month. That's the named range, check in month. I've done another named range here called for CO month. That's checkout month. So I've given these named ranges, and I've done the same thing for the year. Year will be CI year, check-in year. That's important because we're going to use those in formulas. And then another one here for CO year. So this is CO year. So I've given those named ranges. So for both the years and the month. So that for both of our calendars. So that's really important. And again, I want to know, we're using conditional formatting. So as soon as I select here, VBA is going to mark this B6 to true. As soon as I click it, it's going to change it to true, and as soon as I click out of it's false. So if I were to change this to true, it's going to show those cells but not the button. And let's just change it's very quick because it goes back. So as soon as we change it, but as soon as we select something else, it's going to go back. So I'll show you that in VBA, of course. All right, so this basically our conditional formatting is based on these two cells. This is for as soon as this goes to true, it's going to show these cells. As soon as it goes back to false, it's going to hide them. The same thing for the checkout month. This, of course, is going to go to true when I select that calendar, and that is going to help us with the conditional formatting here. And as soon as we check out of it, it's going to go back to false, hide those. And of course, we also have a button set. Now, this button set's also going to be hidden and displayed. Of course, there's 3 buttons, one that will help us click today, previous month, and next month. That button set is called the checkout group. And I've done pretty much the same thing for the check-in. I've given it, assigned it a name, grouped these shapes, and given it a name called check-in group. Because I also, not only do I want to show the cells, but I want to show this group. I want to hide and show this group. If we select on the selection pane here, and we slide this over just a little bit, we can see here, if we scroll down the existing button group we have here, new button. If we look at checkout group here, so if we select something else, we'll see the check-in group is hidden. If we select inside, we will see this check-in group all visible. Same thing for checkout. If we select here, we're going to see the checkout group becomes visible. Selecting outside, it becomes hidden. So we're going to show you how we did that in VBA. It's just a very simple hide and unhide group. So that is what these two things are for. They're used for conditional formatting to show and hide the calendars. And the calendar fix, this is going to be helpful. So when we fix the calendar, I'll show you what that is. But that is based on when a user deletes something here automatically. Like, so if we were to delete any cells in here just by highlighting them and deleting, they're automatically going to come back. So we can't wait to show you exactly how we do that. So I need to mark this between false and true, and I'll show you that prevents some looping. And all we have is basically a years list, and that's just going to be a drop-down list called SC years, and that's going to help us in our drop-down list right here. That's a data validation, and the same list right here. And also months, of course, is our months list, and that's going to be data validation here and here. So if we can see in data validation, we go to data validation, we'll see that months is there, and of course for the years we will see under data validation we see that it's been assigned to SC years, schedule years, abbreviation. Okay, so we've gone through all of the hidden. These things will be hidden. Let's go over this form and see just how we did it. We've got a tab order we want to show you. We want to show you how to do new booking. Let's go over real quick and show you exactly how we did the new bookings into the developers tab here. Visual Basic. Of course, you don't have the developers tab. You can go into the options there, go into the customize ribbon, and make sure you select the developer here. That's going to get you it. Alt F11 is also a shortcut that'll get you into the VBA. Now let's take a look. We've got a few different macros and coding here on the sheet. We've also got 3 different modules called booking macros, the schedule macros, and the tab macros. That's going to automate the tab and of course the booking. But let's start with the booking. Now what I want to happen is I want to load this booking. So all I want to do when I select something, I want to take all the details from this table and bring them up here. And now we've used data mapping. So what I want to happen is this. When I select a specific, whatever's in this, I want to know what row we've selected, and then I'm going to run a loop from column 4 all the way to column 9, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I want to go through this loop, and I want to take whatever's in row 17 and on column D, which would be the 4th column, and I want to, whatever's there, I want to put it in E4. Whatever is in column 5, otherwise known as column E, I want to take whatever's there, in this case 1245, and I want to put it in E6. E6 would be right here. So we're going to just do that, and that's called data mapping. I've shown you that before. We'll go over it real quick just so you can get an idea. we're going to define two variables here. I really only need two variables. We're going to focus on sheet 1. In this training, we're only working on sheet 1. We don't need sheet 2 or 3. The booking row is long. Remember, I need to know that row. In that case, it was 17. And I also need to know the booking column. Why do I need to know the column? Because we're going to loop. We're going to go from columns number 4 to 9. So we're going to run a loop. We need to keep track of what column. And of course, if B1 is empty, then exit sub. What is B1? B1 is our selected row. I need to know that row. If we don't have a row, then we don't have anything to load. So we need to make sure that B1 contains an actual row of all the data that we're going to load into that. So that's important. So back into the code, we know that it contains a value. We can assign the booking row to B1. And I want to set the new booking to false. We're going to load a specific booking, so it's not going to be a new booking. B2 controls whether it's a new or an existing booking, so we want to set that to false. It's no longer a new booking. And I want to set the booking load to true. I just need to know when all these fields are being added to the form, I need to know when it's adding. When it's adding, I want to make sure that this goes to true, and as soon as it's done adding, I want it to return back to false. So we need that setting. That's going to help us. Also, B3, we're going to set that to load up. Okay, so next up, booking column. We're going to run a loop. Booking column 4 to 9. I just went over that with you. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do that. We're going to take all the data from the row that we've selected, and then we're going to bring it into the field. Where is that field? It's on row 14, that cell in the booking column. Again, we're looking for this cell, E4, E6, E8. That is on row 14. Going to take whatever's there. This is going to equal whatever's here, here, and here. So we're going to run that loop. This line of code does that and loads all of the details from the table below on the selected row to the specific form above. We're going to run that loop. So that's a really simple loop. Next up, I want to make sure that we have two different shape groups. Why do we have two different shape groups? Well, I have one for existing. Let's take a look at this shape. There's 3 buttons in that shape. A new booking, a save booking, and delete booking. Those 3 buttons are only used for existing bookings. If we click a new booking, we're going to show a different group, and this one has 2 different buttons. Also save, which is really the same thing, and cancel booking. So this type of group called new booking group is only displayed for new bookings. So as soon as we cancel that and get out of it, it's going to show the old one. So we have two groups, one existing booking and one new booking. So those are going to be hidden or displayed based on whether it is a new. Now, if we select an existing, we know it's no longer a new one. We know it's an existing, so we must display the existing book and hide the new group. So we do just that with the next 2 lines of code. The new booking group here, this shape, group of shape, is going to be false. We don't want that displayed. And then the new one, the shape's existing, we do want displayed. And then the last line, we're just going to set B3 to false. That means it's no longer loading. We set it to true up here, and then we set it back to false here. That's going to help us when we move forward, because we need to know the difference between the user making a change and VBA making a change. So that's why we said the next up, save and update. We're going to do almost exactly the same thing, just opposite. We're going to define the rows, the booking row and the booking column. And of course, we want to make sure that it is a new booking. Save, update. If it's a new booking, we need to determine the row would be the first available row, right? If it's a new booking, how do we know if it's new? B2 is true. B2 will always show true if it's a new. So if it's a new booking, I need to set the row, in this case, to 21, which would be the first available row. If it's not new, we're going to set it to this one, whatever's in B1. So we just need to know whether it's new and determine the row based on that. So we do that with this if-then statement. Booking row, if it's true, is going to be the first available row. To get that, we use D999 and XLUP row +1. That is the first available row. Else, the booking row is based on B1. So we just need to, once we have the booking row, we can then load all of the data using the reverse of what we just did, using the mapping. This time, whatever the row is, whatever the column is going to be equal to whatever is in this cell. How do we know what cell? It's that mapping. 14, remember, column 14 and the column, it's going to equal whatever's in E4. It's going to equal whatever's in E6. It's going to, and so on and so forth. So it's going to take whatever's in E4 and it's going to put it right here. It's going to use this data mapping. This data mapping, of course, will be hidden in yours. When you want high data mapping, you just change the font. to this and it's automatically hidden, but for our purposes it's kind of important, so we're going to keep it visible. But that's what you want to do. You don't want that map being visible. You can put it up here. As long as it's a row that you're not using, you could pretty much put it anywhere. I've just included above the table so it's a little bit easier. All right, so we bring that, and then of course we reset the shapes. It's no longer a new booking because we just saved it, and so we're going to hide any new booking and an existing group. We're also going to set the new booking B2 to false, and also the booking load to false. So that's it for save and update. New booking is pretty simple. I'm going thick because we've been through these forms quickly, and it's not the focus of this particular training, but I do want to make sure you understand what is going on. New booking, all we're going to do is clear out a bunch of fields. We're going to set the new booking to true. B2 must be true, right? We want to set the new booking to true B2. That's important, right? Because we need to know the differentiate. So once we have that true, I'm going to select E4. That's the first available name. So I want to select that. And then we're going to hide our shapes. Now we're going to show the new booking group shape, and we're going to hide the existing. That's all we need to do. So when I right click here and I assign the macro, you'll see that the booking new has been assigned to that. So you see, so when we click that, all the fields get cleared out and E4 gets selected. Remember, that's the first one because it's a tab stop. So this gives the user the ability to enter a name very quickly and then tab over, enter a specific starting date, enter an ending date, and now you just have the room and you have the room type, and then you have special requirements, and then all you need to do is save it. So it's going to loop out automatically with just easily to save it. And then when we click on it, we can see that the 4 days have been highlighted. If we were to change this to the 5th, we'll see when we click back on the calendar all the highlighted. So that's great. All right, so now we know how to save the booking. Let's continue with our booking macros. Cancel new. All we need to do in this cancel new is select the first available row. For example, when I click new, and the user wants to get out of this screen, what do? Well, the thing that I can do is select this, assuming it has a value, which is the first one. So all we do is select that, and that's all I do. You see that? So that's the same thing in the code. Cancel booking is going to select just this, and it's going to do the same thing. So all we need to do is first check to make sure D16 is not empty, and if it is empty, then we can select it. Of course, if it is empty, we're going to keep on this new booking. We want to keep. There's nothing here, right? So the only thing the user can do in this case would be enter a new one. There's no existing data. So that's just one line of code in this macro. If sheet 1 D16 value does not equal empty, then sheet 1 D16 select. Once we select it, the rest of the macros run. How does that happen? When we click on bookings, this is our on sheet macro. So what we're going to do is we're going to do selection change. Now there's some macros here, but the one that we're going to focus on is this one down here, on selection of any booking in the table. If not D16 through V50. This is the table. If the user makes any selection, remember when you see not and you see nothing, they cancel each other out. That means if you have selected or a user has selected a cell anywhere between D16 and V50, then do something. Then what? And D in the target row value does not equal empty. Why do I have this? Because if they have made a selection on anywhere where D doesn't contain a value, I don't want anything to happen. I only want something to happen when they've selected something where D contains a value. In that case, do what? Run the macro called load bookings. In that case, run the macro called load bookings. But before we do that, we need to know the target row. If we're going to load that booking, I need to know what row the user has selected, and I need to place that row right in B20 for 2 reasons. 1, to use the conditional formatting that I showed you, and 2, to know which row we are loading. We need to make sure that we load the row, put the row here before we actually run the macro that loads all the data in here. So that is how we get it to load. So back into the booking macros, you'll see that as soon as we select D16, it's going to run that macro. The next step is booking delete. I want to be able to delete a booking, but what I don't want to do is I don't want to delete a whole row. So let's say, for example, I have Sally Smith 1, our workbook is protected, so we don't want to make sure we can't really delete a row because that's not going to help us. And I don't want to delete an entire row because I don't want to delete this stuff. So how do we do that? If I want to delete this, the best thing I can do is clear the contents of this, and then take whatever's in here and move it up a row. So that's just what I did. So when we click delete booking, I guess I should add an option here, delete booking. It automatically does just that. What I'm saying is I should probably add a, are you sure you want to delete this booking? But you get the point. So that's what I want to do in this. I want to take whatever's here and I want to move everything up. So let me show you just how we did that. So that's an alternative to deleting a row. Sometimes we always cannot delete a row because we have other things going on. We don't want to delete the whole row. So we can clear the contents of a specific row and then move everything else up. So let's do that. So the first thing we want to do when we book it is we want to make sure we've dimensioned what row we're talking about. We need to make sure that we've actually defined a specific row. And then the last row, I also need to know the last row. If we're going to be moving up data, if I'm going to be clearing this out and I'm going to be moving everything else up, I need to define what that last row is. In this case, it's 20, so we need to make sure that we define it so we can move everything else up. So we need to define the last row here under range. Of course, we're working with sheet 1, D999, and XLF row. This is going to get us the last row of the table. So that's important. We need to know that. And of course, we need to know the booking row. That's in B1. Next up, we're ready to clear the contents. We know the row that we need to clear because it's here defined in B1. So range D in the booking row through V in the booking row, it's going to clear the contents. All that that's going to do is going to take everything from D through V, and it's going to clear the contents to clear everything else. So this is a merge cell, so we need to make sure we cover the entire range of that merge cell, including the last cell. Next up, what I want to do is I want to check to see if the last row, if the row that we're deleting is this, there's nothing more to do, right? So if the deleting row is the last row, we don't have anything to move up, so we can just exit out. So we need to check, is the current row the last row? So that's what we run our check on. If the last row does not equal the booking row, then we can go ahead and move everything else up. If it does, there's nothing else to do. All right, so assuming that it is not the last row, what I want to do is I want to take D and the booking row through V in the last row minus 1. What does that equal? That equals D and the booking row plus 1 through V in the last row. What does that mean exactly? So let's say if we're deleting the second to last row, let's say we're deleting row 18. This is the one we're clearing out. So we clear out this row. In fact, let me just pause the code real quick so we can go through this without anything happening. So we go through this row here, right? What I want to happen is I want to delete that row, clear that out, clear the contents. Then I want to take this information here. Basically, I want to copy it for the most part. And then what I want to do is I want to paste the values and then paste them here. And then once the paste the value, I want to clear out this last row. So that's just what I want to do in VBA. So let's do just that. All right, so let's go ahead and reset this. And then we'll save this booking. That's going to save it back in the row. It's going to put it back in its row that we just deleted. Okay, so let's see how we would do that. So when we delete it, we want to know what we want to do. So we're going to move the values up and then clear the last row with these 2 lines of code. So that just does that. So when we delete it, it's going to do just that and bring everything else up 1 line. So that's how we delete it. And that is all the macros that we covered. So the bookings. Let's get into the schedule macros. But first I will quickly want to show you the tab macros. We've been over this before. But basically when we do a tab orders, all you need to really focus on is this for the most part. E4, L4, S4, E6. This is the order in which my tabs are set. So this is the order. So that is how we set the order. So how do we do that? So this way, tab, 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 tab. Again, E4, L4, S4, E6, E8, and D11. So those are the cells we want. But the only thing I want to make sure of, I want to run something. As soon as we get to escape out of here, I want to set it to L4. I want this thing. But actually, it's not going to run. It's only going to run when we exit out of E4. So that's exactly what I want to happen. So when we exit, if the cell address is E4 and we've clicked tab, if the cell address is E4 and we click tab, then what do I want to happen, right? E4. what happens when I click tab? I want this calendar to show up. How do we get it to show up? We do two things. One, we change this to true, and I'll show you that conditional formatting in just a moment. Two, I want this button set to show up. So those are the two things that we do. So when we click back in here, we see B6 equals true, and the check-in group shows. Otherwise, hide it, right? Otherwise, if it's not E4, hide it using B6 and hide that group. Hide that group. I'll show you the group shape. We're doing exactly the same thing for L4. Why is it L4? When we're in L4 here, and we tab out of it, if the existing addresses, and we click tab, we want the same thing, but this one. In this case, B7 should go to true. I'll show you the conditional formatting, of course. And I want to show this group. So again, this group, check out group. So those are the two things that we're going to do when we tab out of it and our address was L4. So then through the code, tabbing out of it, if the active cell equals L4, then what? Then B7 equals true. That's going to conditional formatting to show the calendar and the checkout group. And then otherwise, if it's not, B7 is false and hide the checkout group. So this is the tab. But how do we get the tab to activate? Using this code, I've done this before. I've got a video that focuses on all of this, automated tab. So if you want to see how this works completely, just go to my video on automated tab, because this is how we're going to do that. So that gives you an idea of the automated tab. I've got a video that focuses just on that. But this one, I want to show this calendar. So let's highlight this calendar here. And if we go to Home, Conditional Formatting, and Manage Rules, we've got a selection of specific conditional formats that we cover. The first one, the one that we're focused on right now, is B6 is false. If B6 is false, what do I want to happen? Remember, I want to hide that calendar. So I'm going to change the background color to the same as the background color, and I'm going to change the font color. So I'm going to change the font color to that light blue. I'm going to clear all the borders out by clicking none. That clears all the borders out. And then I'm going to give it a fill color of blue. And I'm going to make sure that that rule is the high up. Should be higher up, right, than almost all the other rules, so that it takes precedence. And we've done the exact same thing for this calendar here, except we're going to cover B7. So when we go into Home, Conditional Formatting, and Manage Rules, we see B7 is false, and it covers P5 through V. That is how we get that calendar to hide. And of course, you know the shapes, you see how we get them to hide. Okay, but how do we get this calendar to work? Okay, we've used a formula. Let's go ahead and pause this code so we don't have too many things running on it. I want to show this calendar, and then I'm going to pause the code here, just so we can keep it hidden. I want to keep it displayed. So we have a formula here. How do we get this formula to work? Well, the first thing I want to do is I want to show you that formula. I want to know if the first day of the month is on a Sunday, this weekday, if the year, what year is it? That would be the check-in year, this year here, based on the month. What is the month? The month is the 1 month selected, right? This is the month. So I want to look at this day. So I'm going to say if day one here, because this is a date, right? Anytime we have a date, we need to define the year, we need to define the month, and we need to define the day. So we're focused on the first day of the year. What I'm saying is, if the first day of the year, based on the month selected, based on the year selected, if it's equal to 1 meaning if the weekday, what is the weekday? In this case, it would be Sunday. If it equals 1, then I want to show that date. All I want to do is display the date. But I don't want to display the full date. I want to display just the 1, just the number 1 in here. Okay, so that means this one in this case. But what if it's not? What if it's not 1? Then what I want to show is I want to show whatever the previous month day is. So we can use that here in this part of the formula here. So if it's true, it's going to show the date. But what if it's not? If it's not, then I want to determine what is the last Sunday of the month, So I can do that by determining the last day using end of month of what? The date, the year, B4 minus 1, with B4, which of course is the month. Let's take a look at B4. That is the month number, right? The month number. And 1. Of course, that's going to get us the date, the end of month date, and then -1. -1 is going to be the date before. This is going to get us the last day of the month, the last day of the previous month. But I don't want that. I want the last day of the previous month minus subtraction the weekday of the end of the month. So I want the last one minus. So for example, if the last day of the month is on a Sunday, I want to subtract the number of days, and it's going to pull that specific date up. In this date, it is 29. So for example, it's 2 days before the last day of the month. This is 1 day of the month. This is 1 day of the month. I've reset the code. And so now you can see, so basically this code, I don't want to get too far into the code, into this formulas with you, because we're going to miss a lot of the great features if I do that. So, but of course, you can download this free calendar. Just use the links in the description. Of course, if you want to get over 100 of these workbooks, I've got a brand new bonus on that with 20 brand new workbooks. So you're going to get a total of 120 workbooks for just $37. So keep that in mind. I have that available. I'll include the links down below. So continuing on, we have these formulas here. So now basically all we're doing is testing, determining if, for example, if the first day of the month is 3, in this case Tuesday, then I want to show the date. But the conditional formatting, let's look at the back in the conditional formatting. But before we do that, I want to show what the custom. I only want to show the day on this custom cell format. Only the day. D is the day. I don't want to show the full date. I only want to show the D. That way, when we select it, when I select it, I can show the full date in here. All I got to do is take the value here and place it right in L4. Because remember, in this case, the format is the full date, but in this case, we're only showing the day. So that's a great way to do that on this calendar. So basically what we're doing is we're testing to determine if the first day of the week. So that's the first part. And then after that, all we need to do is simply add one to get the full date of the calendar. Now, what about, how do we get this conditional formatting? How is it that this month is in white, but next month is in gray? Well, let me show you that. When we highlight that and go to conditional formatting and manage rules, we need to run a test. And it's this test right here. When we edit that, we'll see the month of I8. What is that? What is I8? Well, I8 is the month of whatever the cell that we've selected, whatever cell, it's starting with I8 and it goes all the way through. And notice that I8 is not absolute. What this means is it's going to cover for every cell in the table in the applies to, as long as the applies to also begins with I8. If it does not equal B4, what is B4? B4, of course, is our month number for the check-in, B4. So that means in this case, I8, if we select 1, I8 would be November. So in this case, it would not equal, and it's going to color it gray. And when we give it that format, we're going to give it a little bit of a gray background, and we're going to give it a font of also a darker gray. So that's going to give us our calendar when it's not the month. So when we look at the applies to also begins with I8. So as long as the I8, the formula begins with I8 and it's not absolute, but it applies to also begins with I8, then it can apply to the entire table. So that's how we do that. Green is for the current day. You'll see when we get to that. And of course, B6, this is for another rule. This is going to format the right border. I'm just added a right border onto that. It's because it's important. Why is that important? It's important because when this calendar is selected, I need to make sure, let's go ahead and reset the code here. When we select the next calendar, I need to make sure that the right border here, you see, notice how this, I've hidden all the borders here, but I still need a right border on this when this is selected. So we need the right border here. I've done the same thing for this. Here we need a right border. So it basically, that's the conditional formatting. When we click home, let's highlight the entire there and click home and conditional formatting, and we manage rules, and we'll see on this one it includes a left border. This one contains the left blue border, and we just want to make sure that when B7 is true, that there is a left border. I want to make sure that there's a left border. All right, great. So we see how we get that. Now when we select a specific date, how do we get the date here in L? Well, that's all in a selection change. So let's take a look at that. Back into the VBA, into the bookings, and we have selection change. Now, if the user makes a selection, so let's look under selection change. If they make any selection inside of that table, that is going to be here. If not, I8 through O13 and B6 equals true. That means I want to make sure that this is the active calendar. B6 is true, and that means if they select anywhere from I8 all the way over to I13, that should be I8, make sure that's I8, okay, good, to O13, then what? L4 equals the target value. So let's look it back. Anywhere, click L4 equals the target value. L4 equals the target value. And then what happens? Then something changes. When we select here, it automatically goes to S4, and then it shows this calendar. How do we do that? Well, as soon as we make a change to L4, something happens, right? Well, that's on change, worksheet change. As soon as we make a worksheet change to L4, and L4 value does not equal empty, then something happens. And B3 equals false. We want to make sure B3 equals false. Why is that? Because I want to make sure that the change isn't loading. What kind of change? Why? When I click here, I also make a change to L4, right? Because we're loading the dates. But that kind of change, this kind of change, I don't want anything to happen. But the kind of change that I do want something to happen is when the user makes a change, this kind of change, the schedule change, I want something to happen. What do I want to happen? Well, I want to happen S4 select. S4 select. That will select it. And then I don't want anything else to happen, so we want to end out of that. I'm going to end out of that. What happens when S4 is selected? Well, let me show you. When S4 is selected on selection change, you will then see, or U5, or then want to do, I want to do a few things. I want to set B7 to true. B7, that's going to use our conditional formatting to show the calendar. And I also want to show the shapes, the checkout group. I want to show those shapes. Otherwise, I want to, if they have not selected one of these three, why U5 and Q6? Because I want to make sure that if they've clicked U5 here or Q6 here, I want to make sure that the calendar doesn't get hidden. Because when they select anything else, it does get hidden. So when they click here or here, I want to make sure that calendar, or here, any one of these three, I want to make sure that the calendar is displayed. Anything else here is going to be hidden. So keep that in mind. So anything else is hidden. So when they select anything else, B7 equals true. So I want to make sure. Now, what if they've selected a specific cell inside this calendar range, anywhere from P8 all the way over to V13? If they've made a selection change, I want something to happen. What do I want to happen? I want to take whatever date they've selected. I want to place it in S4. So if they select here, I want to take that date and put it in S4. So again, if not intersection, also under selection change. If not intersection, P8 through nothing, then B7 is true. I want to make sure that that is the calendar. Then S4 equals a target value. That takes the date and puts it in there. Great. All right, so now we know how we get the date. We know how we load the form. But how about these various buttons? We have the Today button. We have the ability to select just a single day. We also have the ability to do previous month, next month. How do we get those to work? Well, let me go ahead and show you that. That's on for each of these calendars. If we right click inside the group of shapes here on the Today, we click the assign macro, we'll see that it's been assigned to a macro called check in today. So let's visit that module, take a look at just how we did that in those three buttons there. If we go into the VBA, we see we have some schedule macros. We have various buttons. In fact, they're pretty much the same. We have check in today, previous month, and next month. That's for the check-in. We have the same three macros pretty much for the check-out, just different. So we're just going to go over one of them because they're almost identical. So the check-in today, right, if we know we have L4 equals date. Now remember, if this for some reason older versions of Excel date doesn't work, you can just use a specific cell. Like you can, if you want to just equal today, right? If you have an issue with date or use older version, just do today, right? And you could say equals range B23. So if you want to do that, I'll just leave that in for you if you want it. So you can equal to cell. That would work just as well too, because sometimes date doesn't always work. Now works also. So what I want to do is in L4, I want to put the current date. That's for important. So we need to do that. That's the first thing, right? We want L4 to contain the current date. But I also want to check on the year. I want to make sure the year, for example, let's say the user has selected 2022, and then we click today again, it's going to automatically go back to the current year. So we want to reset also the current year, so that's important. And also I want to make sure that the month is also reset to the current month, so that everything gets, so it's currently October. So if I select August and I click today and then I look back, it's automatically changed back to October. So we can do that with this line of code. J6, that would be the month, would equal range B and 9 plus the month. How does that work? Month now, right? If it's currently October, the 10th month, if we add B plus 9 plus 10, it's going to get us B19. Well, what is in B19? Let's take a look at it. B19 is October. So we started out here 9. If it was January, 9 plus 1 would be here, B10. So that's how we can get the month using our list here to get the month to appear here. So that's all we do today. So there's 3 components of today. One, I put the current date in here. I'm going to put the current year here, and I'm going to put the current month here. That's all it is. Now, how do I go previous and next month? Now, it's nice if I go to previous next, it's kind of normal. All we're really doing is changing this month number in B4. But what if I get to the point where I get to January? Not only do I need to go to December, right? Check in month of 12, but I need to lower the year 1. So when we do that, go back, I need to make sure that the year is less. Likewise, if we're in December, we need to increase the year 1 and then go back to January. So there's a few conditions on previous and next. In check-in previous, the first thing I want to do is I want to check for what the current month is. If the current month is 1, then I need to do 2 things. I need to make J6 December, and I also need to make N5, which is the year, which is the current year minus 1. So I need to decrease the year increment down, I should say down by 1, right? Down by 1. And otherwise, all we need to do is just subtract the month. Again, we're going to use B4 value, which is the month number, plus 9 minus 1. We could do just as easily 8, but I wanted to show you the difference there. You can easily do plus 8, but it might get a little confusing. Why do I want to do that? Because I want to show you that it starts on here, 9, right? Like, for example, if we're in February, we're going to add 9 plus the current month minus 1. So that's going to decrease. So it just shows you how the math works. If I was going to do 8, it'd be a little more confusing. So that's how we increment the month down 1. And we do just the opposite for next month. If the current month is December, then we need to then make the next month January and then increase the year by 1. Otherwise, we're then adding one, which is increasing. So for example, if we're currently in October, then we would add 1, increase it 1 up to November. Simple math. And we do all the exact same thing for the checkout calendar. So each one of those 3 buttons are assigned to one of these 3 macros. So that is exactly how we get the ability to use those buttons to quickly navigate wherever we want to go. So it's a really, really great feature. I'm glad I got to show that part to you. But how do we get the amazing way to, if the user accidentally deletes it, highlights the cells, clicks delete, how do we get it all back? Well, that's on change event. What I have done is basically taken a copy of all these formulas here. Let's pause the code so we can see just what's going on. Make sure not to delete it. Pause the code. Okay, so what I've taken, we know that there's formulas here. Starting here, these formulas here, these date formulas, they're all formulas. But what I want to do is I want to duplicate these formulas. I want to make sure that if there is any deletion, I want these formulas to come back, right? If the user deletes them, I want them to come back. So how do we do that? Well, we need to copy the formulas and put them somewhere else. So if I right click and I copy those formulas and I put them somewhere like right here and I paste those formulas in, we're going to have a duplicate of these formulas right here. Now that we have a duplicate of those formulas, what happens if we delete something here? If we delete something here, I want to take all these formulas and I want to bring them back right in here. So that's all I need to do is if the user makes any kind of a change in here, let's reset the code. So we're going to make the change. If the user makes a change and they click here and they click delete, I want that to come back. I want take these formulas, copy them right back in here. That's a backup formula. It's a great way for protection when you need to have the user select a specific cell, but you cannot afford to have them deleting these formulas. So how do we do that? Well, that's on change. If the user makes any change between I8 and V13, then take these formulas here and copy them back into this and end. So let's go over that and see just how we did that. So of course we're on worksheet change, right? The user's actually making a change, so it's worksheet change. On any accidental change of the calendars, copy back the hidden formulas. If not intersection, target range of I8 through V13. That is the entire range that we just discussed. And B8 value equals false. Now what I've done is I've set a loop. I've set to prevent a loop. When the user makes a change, when it's being copied back, we're going to set B8 to true, and when it's done copying, we're going to set B8 to false. If we don't put this in there, it's going to create an endless loop back and forth because we're making changes to the same cells. So this is important. This prevents loops. So we want to make sure that if in this process of copying and pasting, we want to make sure that we set B8 to true so that we don't get a duplicate. So we need to make sure that B8 is false. Right, so that's just a little check that we run. B8 is right here. It just goes. So if you'll see, if we do that process, we'll watch maybe B8. It's real quick. It goes from true back to false. So that's all we need to know. So we set B8 to true, and then all we do is we copy the backup. Let's put this copy backup formulas. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste the specials into the main section. I'm going to paste them right back in. Then I'm going to cancel the cut copy mode. That's going to remove those dancing ants. Then I'm going to select L4, and this is not necessary, but this is going to show that the calendar exists. And then B8 value goes back to false. We've set this back to false so that it won't have any issues with the looping. So this way, all we have to do is users can delete this, and then it'll come right back. So that is how we have protection. In this way, once we protect the sheet, we can have users still select specific ranges within a sheet, even if they're not protected, and still have it come back. And yet also, for example, total nights, this particular formula I'm trying to select on it now, I cannot select on it. We only select on those cells that we want them to, and we still have protection, so we still have the ability to specifically have them select cells even when we need to keep those formulas in there. All right, so we've showed a really amazing trick. We've showed you how to protect even unprotected cells. We've shown you how to load a brand new booking system. We've shown you how to create this really amazing calendar show and hide a calendar date range. And also, let me show you before the last thing, how do we get these highlights? Let's show the last one. The last one, conditional formatting. And let's unprotect it here and show you the conditional formatting, and that would be the blue. How do we get the blue? So all we need to do is use conditional formatting, and all I want to know is if the date is between this date and this date, color it blue. If the date is on or after October 11th or on or before the checkout date, in this case September 29th, that's not going to work. Let's put in some real dates here so we can see how that would work. Okay, so now we have real dates. So now we can see on or before October 11th, or on or after October 11th, up to on or before the checkout date. We want it highlighted in blue. So when we highlight this and we go to home and conditional formatting and manage rules, we have a rule here. It's then blue here. Let's edit that rule. And so we want to make sure a few things. I want to make sure, before I color blue, I want to make sure that one, there's actually dates in both of these values. So that's the one I want to make sure that, and I also want to make sure that the check-in date is before the checkout date. I want to make sure that that's very important. So L4 must not be blank. S4 must not be blank. L4 must be less than or equal to S4, right? So in this case, it's not, right? In this case, when we click here, there's nothing. Why is that? Nothing highlighted because our checkout date, of course, is before. As soon as we change our checkout date to after, it's going to show the proper cells. So that's how we do that. Now, let's take a look back in here and go into conditional formatting and take a look back in here. So we have that. We need to make sure, of course, that the check-in date is less than or equal to the checkout date. And we also want to make sure that L4 is less than or equal to P8. What is that? Let's take a look at that. L4, of course, is the date. We need to make sure P8 is, why is it P8? Because that is the first day of our calendar. Let's look at that. P8, right, is the first day. Now, P8, if you'll notice, that was not absolute. Just the P8, no dollar signs, because our range here, our entire range here, back into the home, applies to also begins with P8. So when we look here, our range begins with P8 through V13. So that means it's going to apply for every cell in that range as long as P8 is not absolute. What else? I also want to make sure that S4 is greater than or equal to P8. S4 must be greater than or equal to P8. That means that this checkout date must be greater than or equal to in order to color it. So that's how we color it. And the format is just a simple font of bold and white, and the fill is a darker blue. So that is how we do it. That's how we get that amazing date range to show up. As soon as we've selected something larger, it's going to change automatically based on that. So it's a really great way to see, especially if you have like check in and out, or you have bookings of some sort that expand over days. It's a great way to show it. And you could also probably show both of these just by selecting, and this gives us a way to show both of these. You can have both of them display at the same time. I've chosen to show just one calendar because it might be a little confusing, but it also works also if you have another month. So if we have a month of November 30th and we highlight both, we're going to see that it covers now from October 12th all the way to November 20th. So that might be a nice, if you have long periods, you may want to show both calendars at the same time. So that's easy to program in. All right, I hope you have enjoyed this training. Thank you so much for the date range and cell protection. We've shown you how this really brand new and very cool way to show date ranges and protect the cells in them. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.